Welcome to Your Mac Life for a Wednesday, June the 21st, the first day of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, the first day of winter for our friends really down south in the Southern Hemisphere. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. This is Your Mac Life for, as I said, June 21st, show number 1139. I am your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me, as always, whether you're tuned in live or you're listening in via the archive. On tonight's show, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We're going to talk to Jim about the Scott Forstall interview. Scott Forstall, formerly of Apple, speaks out for the first time in 5 years about his time at Apple and the development of the iPhone. The next June 29th is the 10th anniversary of the launch of the iPhone. We'll talk more about that on next week's show. So there's a bunch of retrospectives going on now with the folks who were involved in the original development of the iPhone. Forstall was really interesting. I wish John Markoff of the New York Times had, I hate to say this, done a better job of interviewing him. Forstall was very engaging, funny, touching at times. The story of how he says that Steve Jobs saved his life, literally, was very, very emotional. As was his reaction to Jobs' death. But I would have liked to have heard more about Forstall at Apple. I didn't care, no offense, about his time at Next or his time at Microsoft or his time whatever. I wanted to get into the meat of the development of the iPhone. I don't think Markoff did a very good job of that. We'll talk to Jim about that later on. Also some news that we haven't talked about yet that strikes, especially with the announcement today, of the CEO of Uber leaving. Bozeman St. John of Apple left, I think just before WWDC, to go to Uber as their chief brand officer, which is just such a bullshit title. We'll talk to Jim about that. And some of the things that have popped up in the news over the last week. In our starting point photography segment, last week we talked about the technique of street photography, shooting people on the street. Today, on today's show, we'll talk about the camera settings you want to have for street photography. There's some very specific settings that can't guarantee you good shots, but will certainly get you on the way to getting better shots when you're out on the street taking pictures. As always, send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com if you are watching the video, but not in one of our two chat rooms. Shame on you if you're listening in live. You're going to join our chat rooms. Our good friend Monty has set up the IRC chat room in a very simple way. You go to the front page of yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there below the video, you can log into IRC, open it up in a separate window, and join in the cool kids in the IRC chat room. Or if you want to be technical about it, you can go to our Slack chat room, yourmaclife.slack.com, and sign in there. Slack is a little more full-featured chat client than IRC, and it's also the one that's open 24/7, or at least when I'm in front of the computer. It's actually open 24/7, but when I'm in front of the computer, I've got my Slack channel open, so you can always chat and talk to me and others folks who are in the Slack chat room. Also, we encourage you to subscribe to Your Mac Life. It's a free podcast, but we'd appreciate it, or I'd appreciate it, if you would go to our website, yourmaclifeshow.com. On the left-hand side there, you can subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever it might be. And that allows that money comes out of your credit card or your PayPal account, sends it to me, and I spend it on bills and utilities and motorcycle gloves. I lost a motorcycle glove. I'd rather lose both of them than lose one. Because losing one means I've got one frickin' glove. A Michael Jackson on a motorcycle. It just pisses me off. They were great gloves, too. They have kangaroo hide on them. Oh, the best gloves I ever had. I don't know why I lost it. I think the cat took it. I had this sneaking suspicion that it's under something or behind something. Because I've noticed my socks all over the house. I've noticed socks not where I left them. You know, I wake up in the morning and I walk out in the living room and I'm like, why is there a sock out here? And it's got to be the cat. So I think the damn cat took the motorcycle glove. I don't know where he put it. I've looked. I don't know where he put it. So, yeah, these subscription dollars go to pay for those kinds of things. Dave D says, buy another pair and mix and match, go wild. No, that would be dorky. I'm not doing that. Speaking of motorcycling, May was Motorcycle Awareness Month in, I think, North America. I don't know if Europeans have a Motorcycle Awareness Month like we do in North America. And one of the things I have been reminding motorcyclists stuff, and I want to remind everybody about this, is the idea of, God forbid you get into an accident and EMTs need to attend to you. You need to set up on your phone the medical ID stuff. I was reminded about this. Someone told me that I should mention this to folks on the show because it's something that can help emergency technicians. When you go to your page, and you can see down there on the side says emergency. When you go to your you go to your health app. And let me just do this live while I'm looking at it. Go to your health app, not Twitter. That's not going to work. Health app, and in the lower right-hand side, it says medical ID. Click on that and fill out as much of that information as you would like. You hit the edit button, and you can put in your name, date of birth, medical conditions, notes, allergies, medications, blood type, all that kind of stuff. And then, once you've done that, if, again, God forbid, you get in any kind of accident, EMTs can click on that emergency button, and they can't get into your phone, but they can get into, so you can see it there, it says medical ID. They can click on medical ID, and then all that information pops up. It's something that everyone should do right now, because you never know. It's one of those things that you don't know you're going to need it until you need it. It's one of those things that's Dave D points out. Road ID is another alternative. Yeah, for those folks who don't have an iPhone, this should be mandatory on all phones because we all carry a phone around. And a lot of EMTs don't know about this. I've talked to them in Starbucks or wherever I see them, and about half of them know about it and half don't. I don't know how to get the word out to EMTs, but this is one way to get the word out to you folks. And then the old line about tell two friends. If you do this, the next time you see a friend with an iPhone, ask them if they've done it, and they're reminding them to tell their friends to do it. So it spreads. Because if you are in an accident and can't respond to the technicians, they can, if they find your phone and they know about this, they can click on the emergency button and then the medical ID stuff and find out whether you're allergic to penicillin or if you've got a heart condition or whatever else it might be. It's definitely something that you should look into doing and making sure that you and everyone you know has the that function turned on. MacMan says, I don't have that emergency option on my lock screen. You should have it, MacMan. I don't know if it's something that's turned on or not. I didn't realize that it was something that was optional. I thought everyone had that emergency screen on their phones. And in celebration of the first day of oops, there you go. Let me do this. In celebration of the first day of summer, my friend Carol and I went out to Mahoney's and Sons, great pub here in Vancouver, right on the False Creek waterfront last night. Actually, I guess we were celebrating the last day of spring, and sat on the patio and had an adult beverage. And Carol Mosquito, she's one of my photography students who wants to learn more. So we went out to shooting and practicing, taking pictures and technique and things like that. She's off to Hawaii today. So actually right now she's in the air. So Carol, hopefully you have a good time in Hawaii. But it's a wonderful location. It's an area of Vancouver called False Creek, which is really, really pretty if you ever get a chance to go down there if you're in the Vancouver area. And as Dave D says, he will be in the Vancouver area. So, Dave, if you send me that email and you are in the area of Falls Creek, I will give you directions to the lovely Mahoney's, where you can it's a pseudo-Irish pub. It's not I call it a pseudo-Irish pub. It's run by Irishmen, like real traditional County Cork Irishmen. But they have nachos in the menu. And I'm sorry, you can't be an Irish bar and have nachos. All right? I'm sorry. It's like a rule. In quesadilla. That's not an Irish bar. If you have nachos and quesadilla, you're not an Irish bar. You can sell all the harp you want. You can be run by Irishmen. But I'm sorry, I got to ding you. You're not a real Irish bar. Just waiting now to get a text message from Jim about his. He's just coming back from an appointment, so trying to see when he's gonna be ready to come on the show. Mac Mosquito in the IRC chat room says that he's he said he liked the 3D. I like that 3D camera, the Ricoh camera. It's a kind of a neat effect. It's not good for everything. It's not the perfect camera. It's a low res camera, but in specific situations, it gives a really neat effect, and I kind of like it at times. And it's good for very specific reasons to shoot with that camera. Just going through my list of things. Next week is the 10th, as I said, the 10th anniversary of the launch of the iPhone. It had been announced the previous January at Macworld Expo, and we were there in the room. I don't think I've been at I know for a fact, I've never been physically at an announcement of a product that became that big. We didn't know at the time, sitting in that room in that January, 10 years ago, that the iPhone would literally change the world. And I will brook no argument from anybody who says that that is not true. Whether you own an iPhone or not, the iPhone changed the world. In hopefully good ways, certainly in some bad ways. There's a significant argument in that it's made a lot of us so very insular. It's very funny. When Carol and I were at the pub last night, and you're walking through the pub and you can see all kinds of couples sitting there, and both of them have their head in their phone. And it was just kind of funny. But it's also opened the world up to so many people. So many people who couldn't afford a computer can now afford a computer and carry it around with them all day long. It's the smartphone in general is huge in what we will call the developing world. There are hundreds of millions of people who don't have a desktop computer or even a laptop computer, but they've got a pocket computer. I think that's something I've come to realize in the last few days as I've been thinking about the 10th anniversary of the iPhone is, remember there were so many, so much discussion from the phone company, the phone vendors, Motorola and those guys, about how, Apple can't come into this market and just think they can take over. I think part of it is I've been listening and reading about the development of the iPhone is that a lot of these people didn't realize that Apple wasn't developing a phone. They were developing a small personal computer that just happened to make phone calls. It being a phone was just the way to get it into your hands. Once you got it into your hands, it became, I think for a lot of us, it is so much more than just a phone. I'd be willing to bet the vast majority of us use our iPhones as things other than phones more than half the time, 75% of the time. For me, it's 95% of the time. I make very, very, very few phone calls on my iPhone. I receive very, very, very few phone calls on my iPhone. My iPhone, 95% of the time, is being used as a small computer, as a small communication device, as a way of connecting and contacting the world around me, as a way of staying in touch with family and friends, real and virtual, as a way of getting information, news, to take pictures, to do so many things other than make and receive phone calls. So I think that's where the Motorola's of 10 years ago dropped the ball, BlackBerry and those guys, was that they thought they were competing with Apple on the phone side, whereas Apple either knew or hoped that the phone was going to kind of go away, that the phone was going to be less important than the computer side of things. And now we all carry around a computer that's incredibly powerful. And seriously, the iPhone is more powerful than, what, any computer made 10 years ago? 5 years ago, maybe? The iPhone we have today. You could argue that it's certainly better than any camera made, small camera, consumer level and below, in the last 10 years, if not the last 5 years. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see how it goes. And we'll, like I said, we'll talk more about it on next week's show with Jim Dalrymple. Speaking of next week's, shitty segue there. In our starting point photography segment later on, we're going to talk about the settings for your camera to do street photography. But up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about this and so much more. All that and more coming up. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining me here in our phone room. We've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Shawn, except I think you just dropped me on the floor.
I did. I'm sorry. I've done that several times over the years. You should be frickin' used to it now. Stop whining.
Well, yeah. Pretty much sums it up right there.
It really does, doesn't it? Did you get a chance to watch the Scott Forstall interview at the Computer Museum last night?
I did. I watched it today after you scolded me for not watching it.
I couldn't believe you hadn't watched it already. I mean, come on. The guy hadn't spoken about... The guy got fired from Apple 5 years ago. Hadn't spoken publicly about this stuff in 5 years. How could you not instantly want to see that?
Because I wasn't sure what to expect, I guess, and
Okay.
I was pleasantly surprised.
So was I. I was really expecting a completely different Scott Forstall. I was expecting, obviously, his NDA has run out. That's why he's talking now. I think that's the reason why he's finally spoken up after all these years, or he's just ready to talk about it. But yeah, I was very, very interested. I didn't realize that he was that engaging a speaker, especially if you compared him to the previous nerds on stage that they had there, who I couldn't listen to for much longer than the 10, 15 minutes I did. I was disappointed in Markov. Markov, formerly of the New York Times. I don't think he did a very good job of interviewing Forstall. Do you?
Damn, that's a good question, because sometimes the interviewer gets in the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't think that he got in the way.
Nope.
So in that part, it's really good, because he just let Scott talk.
But I don't think he did a very good job of asking the right questions. For example, as I said earlier in the pre-show, I didn't care about Forstall's time at Next. I didn't care about his job at Microsoft. I wanted to get into the meat of the conversation, and they really didn't do that until the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although his job at Next and everything, I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The funniest thing of the whole thing was when he said he used to go to lunch with Steve, and Steve would wait for him in line and to pay for his lunch, and he said, you pay me enough, I can pay for my own lunch, and then Steve would swipe his badge and pay for the dinners, and it comes automatically out of your paychecks. So Steve said one time, I only make $1 a year. I have no idea who's paying for this.
And the funniest part of that story is it just proves to us that Steve Jobs is such a wonderful dick. I mean, that's just a dick thing to do. Right? And like Forstall said, he's a multi-billionaire, and he's stiffing his own company for $8.
I thought it was hilarious. Somebody's paying for it. Somebody's looking at the receipts going, oh, geez, Steve bought lunch again.
Oh yeah, exactly. Someone in accounting is going, yeah, I'll just write that off. I'm not gonna tell Steve about this.
That's like 8 years worth of salary, that one dinner, But I thought that was hilarious.
The other thing that was interesting was him talking about how intense that Jobs was. He said that, he had met world leaders, and having dinner with a world leader was less intimidating than having lunch with Steve on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
The conversation was interesting. The other thing I think I just mentioned, that he's a lot more engaging than I thought. He's a very funny guy. He told some great stories. I didn't realize, I knew, but I really didn't pay much attention that he's now involved in producing Broadway plays, and good for him. One of the commenters that I've seen in The Loop and other places were saying, wouldn't it be neat if Forstall followed Jobs from the point of view of getting booted?
I thought the exact same thing.
Getting booted out of his company, out of a company, and then coming back to the company. Do you think he'll ever come back to Apple?
I thought the exact same thing when he was talking.
Yep.
Because clearly he loved what he was doing.
Yep.
And he was obviously very close to Steve.
Yeah.
Which was good and bad for him.
Absolutely.
Because, that led to a lot of, he had disagreements with Steve. He had disagreements, more importantly, with other members of the executive team, which helped lead to his ouster, I think.
So do you think he'll come back?
At some point, I would love to see him come back, because he's still a young man.
There's no chance of him coming back. Zero.
No. Why do you say that?
Because Tim Cook is still there. Jobs came back to Apple because the CEO of the company was a shitty CEO. You can't say that of Tim Cook in any way, shape, or form. So
no, but
there's
Tim's not going to be there forever.
No, he's not. But I don't think that. Okay, I'll qualify it. As long as Tim Cook is at Apple, Scott Forstall isn't coming back. I think they're
agreed.
Their personalities are too strong. I think Forstall has too much pride to go back to a company go back and work for the same guy who fired him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
he doesn't need to.
Exactly. That's the other thing I was about to say. Yeah, exactly. As much as he may love the company, he can go and do similar things at any other company he wants to in Silicon Valley. But I didn't get any sense of longing for Apple from this short half-an-hour conversation. It sounds like he's got a great life now. He's doing this Broadway play stuff, and he's scuba diving with his brother and getting attacked by sharks and hanging out with his kids and all those kind of things. I don't think that and if he wanted to do something, he could absolutely call up any venture capitalist in Silicon Valley and say, hey, here's my next idea. And the VC guys would go, here's $100 million.
Yeah.
I don't think he needs or wants to come back to Apple.
I don't think he needs. Maybe under the right circumstances, he might want to.
But it wouldn't be with Tim Cook there.
No.
I don't think there's any chance, even if it was the absolute right circumstances, I don't think he would come back with Tim Cook as CEO.
Maybe he could, report to Phil or something.
Yeah, that's not going to work either. Because I don't know. I think those guys, once they get to that level, they can't go back down the corporate ladder. Once you've been in the C-suite, you ain't going in the mailroom. Once you're a senior vice president, you're not going to work under anyone else at that same company anyway.
No, I agree.
If you switch sideways, like Angela Rent did, she was the CEO of Burberry, and now she's a senior vice president. That's a different move. But I can't see Forstall coming back to Apple because that would just be admitting with his tail between his legs that he was dead wrong. And I don't think he's going to admit that.
Well, and again, he's so financially stable, he doesn't have to.
Yeah. Well, he saved all that money on lunches over the years.
That's right.
We didn't get a chance to talk about this when it happened 3 weeks ago because of WWDC. What were your thoughts when you heard that Bozeman St. John had left Apple and was going to, of all places, Uber?
Good.
Good? Why do you say good?
Good.
You're a racist bastard. You just don't want the black girl out of there. Is that what this is? Is that what this is, you dick?
Oh, man. No, I think Apple deserves to have talented people.
Uh-huh. You saying she wasn't talented?
I don't think so.
Really? Now, that is a completely different take from everyone else. What makes you say that?
Because she was all about her, not about Apple or not about Apple Music. Oh. It was all about her.
And her brand.
Yeah. Now, she built up her brand enough where she got an offer, I assume, that she couldn't refuse money-wise and to go to Uber. Well, good luck with that.
It is
I'm just glad that she's no longer at Apple.
Wow. You were the first person to have ever said that. That's a very interesting point of view. I don't know her. I don't know anything about her. I just know, obviously, what I see in the papers kind of thing. But to me, it seemed like an odd move to, if you're going to leave Apple, okay, I get that. People leave Apple all the time. But to go to Uber, a company that's known for its issues with generally people and specifically women, and to go to Uber as the chief brand officer, I mean, that has got to be the most bullshit title any corporation's ever given out to anybody.
Right.
It just seems like, going along with what you just said, she built up her own brand. She's now going to be in charge of the brand at Uber. The brand at Uber is toxic right now.
It is.
I mean, it is. If that company's around in 5 years, I'd be very, very surprised without a wholesale cleaning of the entire penthouse level C-suite. Because
well, that's basically happened though.
Yeah, but not nearly enough. I don't think. I think with the CEO resigning today, not resigning, being pushed out today, there's got to be a lot more guys getting pushed out, and then there's got to be a whole different change in the whole corporate mentality that those guys instilled in everyone below them.
Well, I think with Travis quitting and the CFO was gone,
Yep.
the COO is gone, I mean, there's enough C-level positions that are gone.
Yep.
And enough people right below them that are gone that, investors are starting to worry they're going to lose their money.
Sure, yeah.
That's what it's coming down to. I mean, they let Travis do what he does. And, by all accounts, he's a very intense man.
Yeah.
And he will win at all costs. He will burn every bridge that he comes across, even if he doesn't have to, just to win.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for that in business. But if you fail, you've got nowhere left to go.
Yeah.
So again, this is a man that still has controlling share of the company.
Sure. Yeah.
He does not need to work. Now, he will do something else, but he does not need to. So, he can take the next week off and not worry about buying craft dinner or soup. But, good luck to the people that are going to take over.
Yeah.
Because it is toxic.
Yeah, it really, really is. It's not a company that I'd want to be involved with at that level. That's for sure.
They would have to pay me my salary for 10 years up front.
Yeah, no kidding. That's right. And stock options that vested tomorrow,
Yeah. Yeah.
You posted a story on Monday. Tim Cook, other tech CEOs meet with Donald Trump today. Is that just another one of those PR things from Trump that these guys are going to regret going to?
I don't know.
There was another one of those great pictures that somebody posted up on Twitter of Trump in between Cook, Sundar Pichai of Microsoft, and Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and they looked just like they had eaten a bad shellfish. They looked like they were going to throw up. Yeah,
it's like somebody behind the scenes put a warm bag of fiery shit in between them all.
Exactly. It's just it's a no-win situation in my mind for the CEOs.
Absolutely.
If only because Trump is going to take credit for anything good that comes out of it. Anything bad that comes out of it, he's just going to blame them.
Yeah.
They can't believe that he's actually going to take their advice and listen to them. They got to believe that this is just a PR thing for Trump. And that being the case, why would they be involved?
Well, it's very difficult. I would like nothing more. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I would like nothing more than for all of the CEOs just to say, thanks, but no thanks.
Yep.
We're not coming.
Yep, that's right.
Every single one of them get together because they all write letters and sign these letters. All of the major companies sign these letters saying, we don't agree with this policy of what you're doing, with human rights or gay rights or, Medicare or whatever it is. They all write these letters, but then they go sit down at a table with them.
Yeah.
And I know that the reasoning is it's better to be involved and have a voice than to not. But at some point, maybe not is better.
Yeah.
Maybe if they all said all together, no, then maybe that would send a stronger message than to actually go and sit down at the table and not be heard.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is what when I saw that was happening, I struggled myself when I posted that, I didn't say anything. And that's what I struggled with myself to try and come up with, without being political, because I don't care about the politics, but if you're going to sign these letters and take a stand publicly against some of the policies, then how do you justify going and sitting at the table because they want to revamp the government system? So is it money? Is that what this is about now? Is it because you want, a government contract? So I don't think that's the reason, but I'm just throwing shit out there.
Now MacMan makes a good point. He says, because when the president wants to meet you, you go.
Well, that's all well and good. And if any of the other presidents wanted to meet, how many times have we seen all of these technology companies sign these letters saying, no, we don't agree with you. We don't agree with these policies that you have. You're not being fair to, people. I mean, I don't think that we've had a situation like that before. Maybe from other industries, but like you said, is this a real meeting, or is it just Trump meeting with all the top tech CEOs?
Yep.
And
my argument,
I don't know.
My argument about because when the president asks you go, I'd agree with that the first time for a ceremonial thing. But if this is supposed to be an actual working, solve problems kind of stuff, you've already been to one of these, and you already saw him use you as a prop. So why be used as a prop again? That's what I don't get.
Well,
you already met him once, and he blew you off. So why go again?
I completely agree with MacMan. When the president calls, you go.
Sure.
If Ronald Reagan called, I would go.
Yep.
If Bill Clinton called, I would go. If Abraham Lincoln called, I would go. But when somebody is using you, like you said, like this, and they're already, every single one of them have already taken a stand against the policies, and that's my point. That's something that I can't get around. If you're going to take a stand against them, how do you justify showing up?
Yeah.
And I'm starting not to buy this. It's better to have a voice argument, because I don't think that that's working. So.
Well, when your voice isn't being listened to, it doesn't matter. When all you are is a prop, is a photo opportunity, then you've got to, like you said, stand up and say, no, I'm not going to be involved in this.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I don't want to get into the politics of it all, because that's not where I wanted to go with this. But when you look at the people themselves, and what those people and those companies, most of them, I think, from Silicon Valley or from, and what they stand for and what they've already complained about and taken a stand on, the meeting makes no sense to me.
I agree.
Other than exactly what MacMan said, when the president calls, you go.
Yep.
And
right.
Under the last however many presidents there were, 140 or whatever, I don't know, then you go. I agree. Absolutely. President calls, you go.
Yeah. You posted a story again on Monday of IKEA detailing their plans for apps using Apple's ARKit. As I learn more about this, as I read more about this, I think ARKit is going to be the sleeper hit of the 2017 WWDC.
Yeah.
I've seen. I've started following this Made with ARKit Twitter account, and if you want to get an idea of what nerds and developers are doing with ARKit, check out that Twitter account. Check out some of the videos that have been posted there. But it's really interesting when you start getting pointed. Are you dropping beer bottles under the bridge again?
I'm all right.
Oh no, Jim's down.
I'm all right. I'm all right. At each side of the bridge where there's that concrete slide. I just dropped a beer bottle down there. Went into traffic.
The ARKit, the demo that we saw at WWDC was cool. It was kind of neat watching a little space fight, but then watching other people do it on their own in various ways, but also how companies are going to do this. One of the first things I thought of was exactly what IKEA is doing, letting you put objects from their catalog into your home. Because when you go to IKEA, they've got all this cool stuff, but for me, I can't imagine what it would look like in my home. I don't know how it would fit in that space, both in a literal and also a figurative way. But IKEA is letting you do this right there in your home. And you can see a lot of companies are going to be doing these sorts of things. This is going to bring AR out of the gaming realm and into the everyday world.
Well, I think I said something about that this week, where in order, in my mind, in order for AR to become popular, it's going to take an app like this. And I know the gamers are sitting back saying, no, it's all about gaming. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not all about gaming. In order to get into the minds of the average consumer that make up, most of this iPhone buying experience, you're going to need to give them an app that they can use.
Yeah.
And this IKEA app may be one small example, because you're only going to re-outfit your house once, or buy a new coach or something once. But it's going to be apps like that that everyday users can use. And I'm not a gamer. I'm not a photographer either, in case you didn't know. But I'm not a gamer, so that demo was very cool. Yeah, it was great. It was a demo, and they picked the coolest one that they could, and they did a great job with it. They absolutely did. But that's not. I mean, if you told me that's all that AR was going to be, well, then to me it's dead.
Yeah.
Because I don't need that. Nothing I want to be able to do with that.
Well, I think it's also why Apple has pointed us and themselves in the direction of AR, is because Apple believes, and I think not incorrectly, that VR is going to be mostly for vertical kind of markets and just for gamers. And Apple doesn't care, not doesn't care about gamers, but doesn't care about a niche that's small. Now gamers will defend themselves and say, we spend all this money. Yeah, you do, but you're just not nearly enough for Apple, who's now a consumer electronics company who wants to sell one of everything to everybody.
Right.
That's why Apple, I think, hasn't shown much interest, at least publicly, in virtual reality, but is showing a lot of interest in this augmented reality, because this makes more sense for the average person. I can show this to my mom and to my sister, and they can immediately get this, whereas VR, they really can't.
Well, VR is going to need... The problem with VR is that you're wearing those stupid goggles, and people are not going to walk. Well, I shouldn't say that. People probably would walk around all day with those things.
They would.
But, that is not for the average person. Yeah. And when you think of Apple selling, 50 million iPhones a quarter, that's not all gamers and VR people.
Yeah.
Buying those, those are average people that are buying iPhones, and those are the people that Apple needs to sell to and to continue to sell to. And the App Store is definitely a big part of that. When you can do everything that you need to do on an iOS device, well, that's very cool. You can take great pictures, except for me, because the camera is so good. You can take great video, except for me.
Yep.
You can do all of these wonderful things, and you throw in, a million apps, and you can do almost anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what they need for AR and VR.
Now, interestingly enough, he can't make it into the chat room, and he passed it through Monty. Scott Thrift is having trouble getting to the IRC, but he wants you, Shawn, to ask Jim about knowing anything about Google bringing back Glass by issuing a recent software update for it. I don't think this is a story at all. I think this is just Google sending out, there's like one Google engineer who's still working on the software, and I think he pushed it out. I don't think this is a sign of the resurgence of Google Glass at all, do you?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Google Glass is like the Cube. It had its time.
Yeah.
It's probably not coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Even the most staunch supporters of Glass fell off at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's any chance of that coming back.
You okay there?
Yeah. Yep.
You can hear the beer burps, dude.
No, that wasn't a burp.
Wasn't? All right.
No,
It sounded like one.
no. Come on.
But I think one of the issues is, and make no mistake about it, something like Google Glass is going to be in our lives in the next 5, 10, 15 years. But
Yes.
It won't be Google Glass. That is well and truly dead. Because I think it like Uber is toxic now. You couldn't get people to want to use Google Glass now because the name itself is synonymous with, well, it's like the Apple Newton. It's synonymous with failure now.
No. Come on. Don't put it at, say the Edsel or something like don't.
All right, the Zune.
Newton.
How about the Zune?
Okay.
That works?
Perfect,
Okay,
fine.
the
That
Zune.
gets me.
But
Not the Newton though.
But I don't doubt at all that we'll have something like that in the future, but it certainly will not be Google Glass.
No, I agree. I mean, Google Glass came out too early.
Yep.
People, weren't. I don't know if Google was ready for it.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they had an idea, and they like Google does. They put it out there.
Yeah, they took a flyer and something, and it didn't work for them.
Yeah.
We talked about this when it first happened. You remember the story of the first fatal crash of a Tesla? And the story was that the guy ran into the side of a semi-trailer, I guess because of the bright sky and the white semi-trailer. The original claim was that the Tesla's cameras couldn't see the trailer, and everyone was worried about, oh my God, this is going to be the death of autonomous cars. Did you see the news report? What the NHTSA, National Transport Safety Board, came up with?
No.
The Tesla driver got 7 warnings before the fatal self-driving crash. The car warned him 7 times, 6 times audibly. Sorry, 6 times. 6 times the warnings were also audible, and he ignored 7 warnings from the car before he rammed into this semi-trailer.
Because he was watching a movie.
No, that's one thing that they said, that he wasn't watching a movie. The report exonerated Brown on one thing and found that he didn't seem to be watching a movie when the crash happened, as some reports had suggested. But during a 37-minute stretch when he was supposed to be controlling the wheel, he did so for only 25 seconds. Less than 2 minutes before the accident, Brown had set the cruise control to 74 miles per hour, 9 miles over the speed limit. Since the accident, Tesla has upgraded its autopilot feature, which will now shut down if a driver fails to respond to audible warnings. I think this is a good story.
What if it's one of those dickheads that's sitting in the back seat and it turns off, autopilot?
Then that's fine. That means he crashes and hopefully dies because he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that.
And there's more things that Tesla can and should be doing. It surprised me at all that this kind of thing could happen. If the car gives you 7 warnings, that's at least 5 too many. You know what I mean? The car should be able to warn you twice.
I'm with you.
And then stop being autopilot.
Yeah.
It shouldn't give you 7 opportunities to ignore. This is not the sleep timer on your frickin' alarm clock in the morning. This is a 2-ton vehicle going 75 miles an hour down the highway. Come on, Tesla.
Well, I don't blame Tesla for it. I really don't.
Well,
I said that at the time.
Yep.
No, I don't. I said that at the time. I say it now. It's not Tesla's fault. it's their fault. It's the driver's fault. You are responsible for the vehicle.
Yes.
And Tesla is giving you some tools to help you drive.
Yep.
If you don't use them properly, then that's your fault. If you crash, and I hope that when somebody crashes, they don't hurt an innocent person.
Well, that's the thing.
But if you crash, that's on you. That's not on Tesla.
But that's where my concern comes, is that
is not your concern at all.
It's absolutely my concern.
You're just trying to make. You can't even take a compliment. We established that last week. So.
No, my concern is that Tesla is allowing people too much leeway for their own stupidity. For example, you shouldn't be able to get in the back seat of a car in autopilot. The seats have the ability to sense when there's a weight in the seat to turn on or off the airbags. Well, then the autopilot should not be on if there's no weight in the seat of the driver's side. The car should not give you 7 goddamn warnings. It should give you 2 maximum. So that's where I say Tesla is allowing people to do stupid things.
No, people do stupid things.
I agree.
If the car malfunctions, my beard's itchy. If the car it's always itchy when I talk to you too. If the car malfunctioned somehow and the technology failed in some way, and I know what you're going to say, just shut up. If things failed and caused that accident,
yes,
then I would be all over Tesla.
Mm-hmm, yep.
But the fact is, it didn't. The car continued to give warnings. Now, I get the point of, 2 warnings and shut it off.
Yep.
But you know what would happen? He would just turn it back on.
Yeah, true.
So Tesla would give 2 more warnings and shut it off, and he would just turn it back on.
Yep.
And that's what would happen. So the car continued to give warnings. The functions of autopilot did not fail. Everything did what it was supposed to do.
Yep.
It's the person behind the wheel that failed.
Yep.
And that happens every single day. There are car accidents every single day.
Yep, that's right.
Because people fail to watch the road. They'll text and drive. On my way home tonight, the guy wasn't even trying to hide it. He was texting away, had the phone up on top of the steering wheel.
Yep.
Texting away.
I see it all the time.
Thinking, oh my God, I got to get away from you. You're going to be in a wreck.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
So it's people. People are stupid.
Yep.
The technology in this case, I think, worked.
I don't disagree with you. There's certainly the old line about we can't make anything idiot proof because we always keep making better idiots.
Yeah.
That's always going to be the problem.
Are there things that Tesla can do to make this better? Probably. But did Tesla fail?
Yep.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, fair enough.
I think the driver failed.
I certainly am glad to see that this report came out that this guy it was definitely his fault. There's 100% his fault. Now I'm sorry that he's dead. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
It's good to see that and I'm no giant fan of Tesla, the company or the guy, but it's good to see that the company for the most part has been exonerated in this because so many people are blaming the company on this, including the guy's family, which is understandable. That's what you do. But I'm glad to see this report came out that said pretty much exonerated the company.
I'm sorry that the guy is dead too. I really am. I wouldn't wish that on any family.
Yep.
But the fact is, you have to be responsible.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And a lot of people just aren't. Even today, right now, people with regular cars are not responsible. Yep. They'll text and do whatever they need to do going down the road.
Yep. It's going to be interesting in OS 11 when Apple comes out with that blocking system. How many people will actually use it? I don't think many will.
I don't think many will.
Yeah.
No.
I think that's the sad part is that Apple's going to do what they can, and people still won't.
No.
As Wayne says, trouble is it's optional. Exactly, and most people will not choose that option.
And at what point is it not going to be optional?
Right.
So nobody in the car will, or unless you can say, and maybe at some point the phone will be smart enough to know where you're sitting in the car.
Yeah.
And that's not unreasonable to think that you're in the U.S., so you drive on the left side, and we see that your phone is on the left side, so we're going to disable it while you're driving.
No, I've got an easier solution, a much easier solution. That the car has two slots, just very much like CD slots, and your phone will not work unless it's in the slot. And if it's in the left-hand slot, you can only do certain things, like talk to Siri. If it's in the right-hand slot, then you can go ahead and make phone calls and text and all that kind of stuff.
People would just put it in the right-hand slot.
But then it wouldn't work on that side because there'd be no human being over there.
Well,
there are solutions, but
it's sad that we need this.
That's exactly what I was going to say. There are ways around this stuff. We shouldn't need to find ways around this stuff. People should be freaking responsible. And again, as I constantly say, I'm doing this out of self-preservation. I'm the guy in the motorcycle that you're going to kill when you lose control of your car while you're texting. Yeah. That's my concern. If you kill yourself, go ahead. You're a freaking moron. But I'm worried about you losing control of your car when you're next to me on the highway.
Yeah.
Folks, been talking to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He's here each and every week. It's a condition of his parole. Jim, thanks very much for joining me, buddy.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I always like using that line on Jim because it always makes him laugh. It's always a good line. I like it. Someone used it on me once many, many years ago, and it made me chuckle. What are your thoughts on any of this stuff that we've been talking about? Send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. I'd love to hear what you guys think about these subjects. In our starting point photography segment on tonight's show, last week we talked about the techniques of street photography, in particular shooting people, photographing people on the street, what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do. This week I want to talk about how you should actually have your camera set up. And that's important in general. You should always have your camera set up for the kind of shooting you expect to do. And I hear from a lot of beginners who say, well, I don't know what I'm going to shoot. Well, that's part of the problem. When you're going out and being a photographer, here's a perfect example. Basketball players go and they'll practice one thing. So today I'm going to go shoot 30-foot jump shots. I'm going to shoot free throws. I'm going to shoot hook shots, whatever. Same with photography. Go out and practice a segment of photography. Don't go out thinking, I'm going to do all of it. You don't get better trying to do everything all at once. So when you go out and you're being a photographer, you've decided I'm going to go out today and I'm going to take pictures. Have a focus of what you're going to do. Have a technique that you want to practice. Have an idea of something you want to shoot. So if you're going to go out and do street photography, then think about what you want to shoot. Okay, I'm going to shoot street photography. I want to shoot buildings. So you set your camera up in its settings to shoot buildings. You're going to have f-stop of this. You're going to have shutter of this. You're going to have ISO of this, according to the sunlight, all that kind of stuff. So in this example, we're going to talk about shooting people on the street using some of the techniques that we talked about on last week's show. One of the things you want to be able to do is take pictures very quickly. You don't want to have to be standing there trying to figure out the settings while the person is walking towards you, and then by the time you're ready to shoot, they've already walked past you. Or there's somebody standing in a street corner waiting across the street, and you see this great look in their face or this great sun or light on their face, and by the time you get your camera figured out, the lights turn green and they've walked on. So remember, one of the things that we talked about on last week's show was the physical size of the camera. It's going to be a lot easier to do with it's going to be a lot easier to be unobtrusive, not incognito. I think, and this is a personal thing for me, I don't think incognito is good. I think hiding in street photography is good. And personally, I think I may say that because obviously I can't hide. I'm 6'3" and 240 pounds. I can't hide anywhere. So for me, I don't want people to think I'm being sneaky in taking their picture. Not so overtly sneaky. I'm not hiding behind a hedge or something like that. I will be sneaky in the sense that I will do those techniques we talked about on last week's show, and I'll use a fairly small-ish camera that's less obvious. So, as I said, you want to think about what you want to shoot and the conditions that you're going to shoot in. The first thing is, as we always say in photography, the most important thing in Wayne says, hiding risks making you seem like a creeper. Exactly. That just, hiding increases your chances of getting into a confrontation with somebody. If you are upfront about it, they're less likely to confront you about it. If you're hiding, they feel more able to confront you and say because they have evidence. You're being a creep. You're hiding. So I personally don't do that. So as we've always said in photography, you don't shoot dark. You always shoot light. So the first thing you've got to do is wherever you go to shoot street photography is look for the light. Look at the light. What time of day are you shooting at? What kind of light is coming at that time of day? Are you in the concrete canyons of New York City, in which case you can have a lot of shadow? Are you out in the broad daylight with a lot of sunshine at noon? Are you shooting at sunrise or sunset where the sun is lower in the sky and there's a much better chance of getting that wonderful golden look that you can get on people's faces? So keep that in mind and set your camera up for those things. We want to set as much in the camera before we take a picture as we can, so there's less futzing around. Keeping in mind that you may have to change things during the day. So let's just say we're shooting on the streets of Vancouver and it's a cloudy day. So I'm either going to set my white balance to cloudy, or in my case, I'll generally leave it in auto. I'm going to set my ISO to about 400 because that's a good mix in between. If it's a bright sunny day, you set your ISO to as low as possible. If it's a dreary, rainy, gray day, set your ISO to 800 or even 1600. But in general, on a nice day in the summertime, I'm going to start off with ISO 400 and then increase it if I need to. But 400 is a good start for most cameras. So think about the light that you're going to be looking at and looking for. Next up is aperture. Aperture is that thing that gets the subject matter in focus. So if we're shooting people, you're generally going to be shooting one or two faces. As I always tell my class, you set your aperture to the amount of stuff you want in focus. So you want a little bit in focus, in other words, one person's face, set your aperture as low as it can go. If you want to shoot a crowd, a bunch of people, set your aperture as high as it can go. So think about what you're going to shoot. And in general, in street photography, I'm going to be shooting one or two people. So my aperture is going to be set at about f4, f5. If you're not sure, use f8 or f11. Those are called the fire and forget apertures. Those are the ones that you're going to get you're going to get a really good depth of field. You won't get it as a background as blurry, but you're pretty much guaranteed of getting a lot of people or things in focus. So f8, f11 are the ones you can go with if you're going to shoot an aperture priority and aren't sure about how many people you're going to be shooting. Sometimes, though, you want to shoot in shutter priority because sometimes, and this is something that happens to beginners all the time, especially with beginners who set their aperture priority and forget to look at their shutter speed. So let's say it's darkish. It's daytime, but it's very, very cloudy or overcast. If you set your camera to f11, That's a fairly small opening, so not a lot of light comes in. Your camera will set the shutter speed that matches up that f11. The problem is that shutter speed may be too slow for the shooting conditions. So you got to keep an eye on all those little numbers at the bottom of your viewfinder. If your shutter speed number drops below 100, keep this in mind, 100, then you have to look at finding some way to get more lighting. Because what that means is at 100, you pretty much can't hold the camera steady in a regular handheld kind of way. You're always going to be moving a little bit, and your shots won't be very clear. So if you find that in aperture priority mode, your shutter speed is always below 1/100th of a second, you can do one or two things. Either make your aperture number smaller, which makes your aperture bigger, that lets more light in, or bump up your ISO. So if you're shooting at ISO 400 and f11 and your shutter speed is too slow to do it handheld, you're going to get blur, then I personally would, with my camera, increase my ISO. I would double my ISO to 800 and see what would happen. That should generally have your shutter speed. So your shutter speed should shoot up to 1/200th of a second. So the other thing you can do is flip the switch and go to shutter priority mode and set your shutter priority to say 1/250th of a second and let the camera figure out aperture, let the camera figure out ISO. That might help get those better shots for you. The other thing I tell folks to do when it comes to shooting in street photography is you may have to read your camera manual to figure this part out. But I find that shooting in black and white, if I'm shooting people, people's faces, for whatever reason, really lend themselves to looking good in black and white. There's any number of reasons why that happens, but it just seems like they come out better in black and white than they would in full color. I'll try to show you an example. Here's my, I mentioned her earlier. This is my friend, this is my friend Carol, the photography student that I had taken out yesterday, and we were sort of wandering around looking for, not wandering around, we didn't move. We just sat at the pub. And she's a gorgeous woman, just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And the sun was setting, so there's wonderful golden glow on her face. But the shot I took of her in black and white, I think came out so much better than the color shot. There's just something about the texture of a black and white shot that just, in my mind, seems to come out so much. And I can't, what the hell's happened here? Come on. You stupid thing. So I'll show you the same shot of her in black and white, and I think it looks much better. And so does she, by the way. The thing is, and this is a complete vanity thing, black and white softens skin tones, softens wrinkles. Doesn't get rid of them, but it can sort of smooth out your skin, and it makes things less distracting. So if there's a background that doesn't look great, and in this case, the background was just the bar we were at, and it was the stairs behind us, and so her background didn't look great, but the shot came out really, really well. This is a completely unposed picture. She's not posing for me. This is a real quick shot. You can see her sunglasses are askew on top of her head, but I just like the shot better in black and white than I did the color shots I took over. Even though the color shots had that wonderful golden sunset glow to them, they came out really nicely. I mean, I liked them. I took several color shots of her. Here's another one that I took of her in color that I think came out really nicely. If iMessage will open it up. Come on. Stupid thing. So here's a shot of Carol in in full color. She's just taking the shot, so she was quite proud of herself. But I think the black and white stuff comes out so much better than the color stuff. So keep that in mind. So what you want to do, Monty says there are too many color choices for skin tones in color. The camera picks up all the imperfections. Black and white smooths things out since there are less choices of shades of gray. Great point, Monty. Fantastic point. So what I've had students ask is, do I shoot in color and then change it to black and white in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever? I don't. Some people do, and you can. If that's what you choose to do, you do it however you want to do it. But for me personally, I'd rather shoot in black and white, or monochrome, as it will say in your camera manual. Because that way, when I take the picture, I can see the black and white immediately on the viewfinder in the back of the camera. And the reason why I do that is because it's our nature as people and as photographers to be attracted to color and take pictures of color. Whereas when you shoot black and white, obviously there's no color. And so you need to start looking at things without their color. Perfect example is, say you've got a green background and someone in a yellow dress. In color, that looks great. In black and white, the green and the yellow would sort of blend together. It wouldn't look nearly as good. So taking that picture in color and then getting it back to my computer and switching it to black and white, I'd go, oh, shit, that didn't come out. Whereas if I shoot in monochrome on my camera, I'd see immediately that wasn't a good shot. Now, keep in mind, first of all, you should be shooting raw. If you shoot raw in monochrome, you're not shooting in monochrome. The camera is showing you monochrome on the back screen, showing you black and white on the back screen, but the file itself still has all the colors. So don't think that you've lost the color of the shot when you take it in monochrome. All you're doing when you set your camera up to be black and white or monochrome is telling the camera, you shoot in color, because that's what you do, but show it to me in black and white or monochrome. When you're bringing into your editing software, you can choose to see the original raw file in all its color, or you can choose, depending on your software, to see it just in black and white. Macman says, I've salvaged many pictures by converting to black and white or sepia. That's absolutely true. I've taken many pictures, especially for me personally, pictures that have a lot of really neat lines in them that for whatever reason didn't come out in color or just didn't look good, looked too blah in color. But when I switched them to black and white, they came out looking really, really nice. Almost every picture I take of a human being in Lightroom, and Lightroom has a button that says black and white. Every picture I take of a human being, I at least click that button once to take a look at it and just see what it would look like in black and white. Most of my other shots, about half my other shots, I'll just click on black and white, just see. Now, every photo editing software has more than one kind of black and white. A lot of folks don't realize that. There's a million different ways to edit in black and white. It's not black and white. It is shades of gray. It is shades of monotone. It is sepia. It is all kinds of different ways of seeing in black and white. And high contrast, low contrast, more grain, less grain, all kinds of ways of looking at black and white. And speaking of grain, something else I wanted to mention, black and white is great for dark, moody situations because you can really crank up your ISO. Because in black and white, ISO, when you crank your ISO up to, say, 3200 or 6400, when it's in color, it's grain, it's noise. It looks like splotchy dots. But in black and white, it often comes out as grain. And grain is good. Noise is bad. Grain is good. So quite often you can really crank up your ISO to shoot in black and white and get this really cool, grainy, old school film look to your shots. So give that a try. I'm doing a photo walk next week where that's what we're going to do. We're going to go walking the streets of Vancouver, an area called Granville, and we're just going to shoot in black and white. And again, so have the camera, the idea is to have your camera set up before you get there. So all you need to do is find that face and go click without having to worry about your camera settings, because your camera is already going to be set up for those kinds of shots. Speaking of last week's show and shooting people on the streets, we got an interesting question from, where'd it go? Oh, no. Oh, we got a great question from was it Matt? Oh, shoot. I had this problem with mail where I move, you guys send me emails, and I move them to my folder, and then they disappear out of the folder. I know I had this question from a listener. Oh, we go. I found it. Whew. This is from Mark Pullman in South Carolina. After a few months of exclusively listening to your shows and audio podcasts, happened to watch your June 14th show. I work at a high school and have done video projects with kids, including a closed-circuit show-only TV show. Like you, I believe to understand what is allowed and what is not allowed when taking another person's picture. However, I want to see if we have the same understanding. You mentioned on your June 14th show you took a picture of a good-looking 20-something-year-old guy and showed your audience the picture. It is my impression, since your show is for profit and you have shared his image without his consent on another form of media, it seems to me this would not be allowed. I doubt the guy is willing to spend time and money for what would result in no return, except for the principle of the matter, but I'm curious if I'm correct and what your opinion is. It's been a few years since I've done video TV projects, but I may want to do it again in the future. Although I feel confident about my understanding of the laws, my lack of being 100% sure prompted me to send this email and ask for your opinion. Fans and Sly and even Hillary were sharing the stage with you, but both not at the same time. Mark in South Carolina. It's a great question, Mark. Very observant of you. The answer to your question is, because I was using that picture in an editorial sense, I was describing an event, you are allowed to use it freely, even though this is a for-profit TV show, radio show, podcast. Same with the evening news. So if the evening news takes a picture of a group of people walking down a street, those people cannot sue the evening news or can't expect money from the evening news because they put their picture on the evening news, even though the news is for profit. It's because they're using it in an editorial sense. And as long as you're not misrepresenting what's going on in the picture, this is a pedophile, then you are allowed editorially to use those images. Now, Mark followed up with, after thinking about it further, I may have figured out what your response will probably be. Let's see if he's right. He says, I also think I know what why my mind was confused. My guess is you'll say as long as you take the picture while standing in a public place, you can use the picture as you wish, except when the use is for wrongful defamation of character. Not necessarily. If I wanted to sell that picture, I couldn't. If I wanted to physically sell copies of that picture, Mark, to other people, I would not be allowed to because I didn't get a model release. He says, anyway, I was confused because I was thinking of my situation in high school where a student needs to have parental permission if a photo or video of a student is produced in school and released to the public. My understanding is that in a classroom, we may produce pictures and video during school projects, but it will be a school employee's responsibility if the pictures get out in the public domain without parental permission. Yes, because those were shot on private property. The school is not public property. Unfortunately, as a result, students and adults in school believe no one can take a picture of them. That's absolutely not true. However, it is my opinion that the law states only that images, videos cannot leave the school and be used for any purpose except for the school-related purpose it was intended. See, one of the issues here is that because I'm guessing, Mark, you guys are using the school's equipment. You are shooting on private property, and you're shooting for the school. And normally the school, depending on the contract you may or may not have signed with the school, would own those projects. that the kids don't necessarily own the project. They may have rights to it, but the school might own the project. Using an example of school video surveillance, the video pictures cannot be used outside of the purpose it was intended, much like businesses such as Walmart do when doing video surveillance. It's my interpretation of the law that it's unlawful for a business doing video surveillance to release to the public images of minors in their place of business without parental consent. I was just curious if your interpretation of public picture taking laws correspond with my interpretation. You need not respond. Mark, thanks very much. That was good emails in helping me clear that up. I also got another one from, I think, I don't want to say the name until I'm sure. Here we go. Our friend Scott Randall. I listened a long time to your discussion about being able to take people's pictures in public without their permission. It may be legal, but I think it's terrible. The law needs to be changed, so you have to ask permission before taking a person's picture. To me, this is such an invasion of privacy. This is such an invasion of a person's personal space that it should not be permitted. I know you can do this without them knowing, but I still feel it is not right. Just a question between you and us. If you took, so first of all, you say this is an invasion of a person's personal space. The problem is, Scott, our laws and customs have said that if you're in public, that's not your personal space. You are in public space. And as a result of you being in public space, we have a compact in our society that those things that you do in public are observable by the public. You can't say, I'm going to change my underwear in public. Well, this is personal. Don't look. You can't do that. You're in a public space. And the public gets to use that space and observe and record that space. With your logic of you need to ask someone's permission before you take a picture of them, this has happened in, sadly, hundreds of cases in the U.S. and in Canada over the last few years of someone being arrested on the street, and someone takes a picture or a video of that arrest. Well, I can't very well stop the police and ask them for permission to take their picture. I can't very well ask the person being arrested, guilty or not, if I can have permission to take their picture. Your solution just isn't reasonable given the public nature of the space. I understand your concern. I'm not dismissing your concern. I'm just trying to explain to you that if you're in public, our customs and our Supreme Court in Canada and the United States and other places have said if you're in public, you do not have a right to that personal privacy. Mosquito says, yes, this was tested a decade or two ago with an image of an African-American guy in a suit on Fifth Avenue. Wound up on a magazine cover with a headline like, African-Americans in business. He sued the magazine and got a settlement. That's what happens when you do it and try to sell that image. That's different from what you're talking about. But Scott asked an interesting question. He says, if you took a picture of someone and they asked you nicely to please delete it and showed them it's deleted, would you do it? That is a case-by-case situation. It's an interesting question. Apple Expo in Paris, 2005. Jay Curtis and I are in Paris, and we are walking through the show floor the day before the Paris Expo opens. And traditionally, Apple has got this huge booth, and it's surrounded by a black cloth. And there are security guards at all four corners and in every space where that cloth opens up. So you cannot look in, and that cloth is floor to ceiling. It's 50, 60 feet high. So you cannot look into and see what Apple was doing. Okay. So I took a picture of the big black cloth to show you, the audience, this is what Apple does. Well, apparently one of the security guards reports me to the head of security, who then, accost is the wrong word, but approaches me and demands, nicely, in that French sort of way, that I give him my camera. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. He then demanded, in a nice French kind of way, that I delete the photos that I had just taken. No, I'm not going to do that. But he threatened to ban me from the expo, which he is perfectly allowed to do, unless I deleted the photos. So at the time, I was using I think it was a Sony camera. And the Sony camera had a very neat little feature that was, at the time, fairly new. It had dual camera card slots. And so I opened up my camera. Now, first of all, I showed him the pictures on the camera and said, look, dude, just a black cloth. There's nothing, there's no secret images here. It's just a black cloth. He didn't care. He wanted me to delete the images or give him the camera card. So I was like, oh, fine, okay. So I popped the second camera card that was empty, and I gave it to him. And he very self-satisfiedly then said, aha, I'm now banning you from the show floor, and booted me out of the show floor. Told me I had to leave and, get off the property. This was like at noon. So I'm sort of standing around outside now for the next 5 hours waiting for Jay, who, of course, stabbed me in the back and hung out on the show floor for another 3 or 4 hours. But I got the picture because I gave him the empty camera card. So all it cost me was a camera card. So in that situation, no, because I was shooting in an editorial way, in a journalistic kind of way. If I'm on the street shooting and someone asked me, again, nicely, if I would delete the photo, the first thing I would do is I would show them the photo. I would say, I'm so sorry that I've done something to offend you. Here's the photo I took of you. I think it's a great photo. If you take one of my business cards, I'd be happy to send you the photo. If they say, no, I still want you to delete the photo, I'll say, fine, okay, I will. I would delete the photo for someone who asked nicely, who I taken a photo on the street. But again, you don't have to do that. You legally do not have to do that. And in no way, shape, or form can anybody legally force you to do that. If you are in the street in a public place and they're in a public place, you can take their picture. What you do with the picture afterwards is the issue. So, for example, you are perfectly allowed to post it on Twitter and Facebook, as long as you don't misrepresent that person. Hey, here's a picture of a pedophile took on the street. You can't do that. And then if you have to, or if you want to sell the photo, then obviously you can also not do that without a model release. But no one's going to buy the photo from you. No reputable agency or website or news team is going to buy that photo from you without a model release. MacMan says I probably would if they were nice about it. I think that's the key. If someone's belligerent, for me personally, again, I'm 6'3" and 240. If you're belligerent, as anyone who follows me on Twitter knows, if you're belligerent to me, I'm belligerent back. But if they're nice about it, and after I show it to them, they still want me to delete it, yeah, I think I delete the photo. Good question, Scott. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. And with that, it's 7 p.m. Pacific time here on Wednesday, June 21st. What's the official moment of? I think the official moment of summer was it sunrise? I know today's the longest day of the year. Hopefully, you all have a great summer coming up. Those of us in the Northern Hemisphere and you folks in the Southern Hemisphere, hopefully it's a short one for you. But that can't be possible for us to have a long one, you to have a short one. But hopefully you all have a good summer, and we'll have a good summer together. So keep listening. I'll say thanks very much. There we go. Monty says 12:24 a.m. today in Atlanta was the summer solstice. So Thanks very much, Monty. As always, thanks very much to our friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us here on the show. If you have any questions, comments about what Jim said or what I said, whether you agree or disagree, as always, send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. And if you have any comments or questions about photography, always happy to get your photography questions. Send them off to me at Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. So until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!